What do you want readers to take away from your essay?
I want readers to take away just the fact of like Walt Whitman's legacy. Like he was he answered the call for the need for a bard, and just his truly like passionate ability to write and write about these themes of unity and individualism, and just understand that Walt Whitman was an incredible writer and is the reason we have so much modern poetry and modern prose today.
How do you feel about your essay ended up?
I feel like it was pretty good. I mean, I wrote it for for our American Lit final, and I was really stressed because I was like, I think this is the worst thing I've ever written, you know? And then I read it back, and a couple of my friends were like, no, this is actually really good. I like the points you're making. And me and Jen, who is a professor for that class, we sat down and we talked about it and conferenced about it a couple times. And I was always like, Jen, I don't know what's happening. And Jen was always like, Sal, what do you mean you don't know what's happening? This is fine. Like, you're doing fine. And now that I'm going back and reading it and like revising it some, and obviously submitting it for the Morningside review, I'm really proud of how it came out, actually. I think I got my point across very well.
If you could, would you change any part of your essay?
I think, I don't know, I think it gets a little kind of rambly. I think there's some points where I could have been a little bit more concise. I think I let Sal, the like writer who really likes to be like the non-academic writer, kind of put my hands in a little too much. And so I think maybe making it a little bit more academic and professional would be a good choice for that essay.
With the amount of connections with water you mentioned in Whitman's writing, do you think the use has been overdone in today's age as a gateway into connecting themes and ideas with the plethora of media that it is used in?
Honestly, no. I think water is just such a versatile symbol that, I mean, it depends really like what you're going for, but I think water can be used for so many different things in the way Whitman uses it, and it's especially special for Whitman, someone who grew up in New York on the island, like talking about like people coming in, the American dream, kind of like people coming in on this one like ferry, and you know, stuff like that. And I think water is just such a good vehicle for so many things. I think maybe, yes, it does get a little oversaturated because people see it as like a super easy, oh, water's a super easy symbol. I can write my essay about this. I can make this a central part of my character. But I think when people really sit down and are like, when people are intentional with it, I think it works really well.
In your opinion, is there any theme or personification of something that has been overdone? And can a theme or a personification be overdone?
I think they're the kind of very easy ones, you know, like there's always like the snake as like being like a traitor, like someone who's like cunning. Like there's like a couple that are like very like there's more depth to it. We can always find more depth. Especially when you think of like a rose and like the thorns, but also like the love and stuff like that. I think there's so many fun things you can do with symbols that people, again, it's a lot of people, especially like beginning authors or like beginning writers or like middle schoolers who are writing their first ever symbolic essay for the first time, they find the easiest symbol they can and the most surface level one, and they don't go into it any further than that. And so that's when we kind of get to the point of like, this is kind of overdone, this is kind of overused. But I think every symbol has its own place and its own ability to be unique and like well thought out and well fleshed out even.
Is there a personification or theme that you overuse a lot in your writings?
I really like so in my own personal writings, I really like the idea of like poker as like a character kind of choice or like theme, and like the idea of like playing cards and playing with those. And so maybe not overused, but it's definitely kind of a trope or like a character like trait, really liking those things I come back to a lot, like poker chips and poker card and like or like playing cards and stuff like that.
With Whitman's work being influential, do you believe that in the future someone will be a large influence on others on what they write, or with technology evolving, do you believe poetry and other forms of writing will struggle influencing the masses?
Oh, good question. I mean, I think there are going to be plenty of influences in our lifetime. I think because Walt Whitman was so foundational to the history of America, I mean, like, just because he was one of the first American like true poets. I don't think there will ever be anyone quite like Whitman, especially because a lot of people don't know they've been influenced by Whitman. They just are writing free verse poetry and are like, yeah, this is cool, but they don't know that Whitman is the reason we have free verse poetry. So for the first part of that question, there will always be people who are influential. I don't think there will be anyone as foundational. For the second part of that question, the kind of technology, and it's scary. We're in a scary world with technology and poetry and prose and where everything is going with that. And I want to, there's a part of me that really would love to believe that poetry is going to have the same effect that it has for years, and that we're still going to study it, and that we're going to do all this deep, like, analyzation of, is that a deep analysis of poetry and prose, and find all these cool meanings, and like, oh, this is why this person did this in this one line very specifically, and it calls back to this other thing. But a lot of people are starting to use kind of like AI to do that kind of thing, and that's the thing, is AI isn't human, so you run out. AI can only do what we teach it, and the people that are currently teaching AI to do things, to take over what we should be doing, what we should have had time to do because AI should do the menial stuff, aren't going to teach it how to look for deep human meaning of things. It's going to look for the surface level stuff, kind of like I talked about before. So it's a very scary time for tech, and I really hope, as someone who loves technology, I'm really hoping we don't lose out on the human influence in our poetry and prose and art and all of that kind of thing. But it is scary.